In this follow-up to a prior video I did about bile reflux, we'll talk about what bile reflux is and what we can do about it. Welcome to Belly Brave, my online diary about living with and through stomach cancer. Bile reflux happens when a digestive juice called bile, it's made by the liver, it actually backs up into you. And with digestive processes, you generally want them to flow in one direction, and that's down, that's not back up. But if you're a total gastrectomy patient like I am, and you lay flat, you're in bed, or you're laying down and you're watching TV, you can have bile kind of come up, creep up. And the reason for that is when we have our stomachs taken out, we have the valve that stops bile from backing up into you, that actually gets taken out also. So we want to learn about what we can do if that happens. So that's what bile reflux is. What is bile reflux not? Well, bile reflux isn't the same as stomach acid backing up into you, because bile made by the liver is alkaline, stomach acid is acid. So the types of things that you would take as a remedy for stomach acid backing up, like Mylanta, Tums, Rolaids, they're not going to work for you if what you have a problem with, why you're experiencing that heartburn, is because of bile reflux. So we want to know a little bit more about what remedies are available to us. And you're going to want to know what remedies are available to you when the problem feels like lye actually burning in your chest or hot coals. You want to be able to not only deal with it when it happens, kind of in the here and now, but you want to prevent it from being something that recurs. Because bile reflux can really irritate your esophagus. It can break down the lining. And I mean, I'm just getting over stomach cancer. I don't want to set myself up for esophageal cancer, which is if your esophagus continues to be irritated by something like bile, it breaks down that lining of your esophagus and makes you more vulnerable. So I want to know what my possibilities are to stop this from happening and to quickly deal with it if it does. Now, easier ways to deal with it. I mentioned that it can often happen if we're lying down in bed or kind of like reclining on a couch. I guess the ideal elevation is for your head to be elevated at a 30-degree pitch. So you can obviously just add more pillows, or there are these wraparound pillows that kind of keep you elevated. I tend to, it doesn't happen that often, but I sometimes will slip down off of my pillow, kind of like heading towards the foot of the bed. So generally I don't have a problem with it, but when I do, it's because I've made one of those motions and I've just started laying too flat. So elevating your head and hopefully not slinking down the bed is an easy way to deal with it. Because bile is alkaline, it's counterbalanced by acids. So what has an acid in it that can kind of balance out the alkaline of the bile? Colas, like Pepsi, Coke, taking a shot of pickle juice, taking a shot of apple cider vinegar. Those are some of the things that can help with bile reflux. So that's all great is if you have pickles, Pepsi, or Coke available to you, but I'm going to be traveling hopefully soon. And my concern is that those things aren't always going to be available to me. So what I wanted to do was to find out what kind of medications might help me deal with bile reflux just in case it happens when I'm out of the house. So one of the things I did when I was looking about medications is, as an aside, I'm part of this really awesome support group on Facebook called Stomachless Living Support. And you find out a lot from people who are on there about what has worked for them. So it makes you, there's such gaps in terms of what you hear from your different doctors. It's just wonderful to be able to hear it from other patients. And this is one of the reasons why I do these videos. 2 medications were mentioned a number of times. One of them is Sulcrafate, and the other was cholestyramine. So excuse me if I'm really slaughtering their pronunciations. But I had to go to my GP for something else, so I thought I would ask him about these medications. And I just mentioned this briefly in support of those of you who might have a general practitioner who's not as up to speed on the special needs of total gastrectomy patients as you might want, because my GP told me that they were not available in New Zealand. And in fact, they are available in New Zealand. And another reason why reaching out and having access to other patients is really good. This I found out, yes, on the internet, that no, these medications are available to us. Now, because that said, I still need to have a prescription for it. While my GP didn't know about those medications, my surgeon did, because he's the one who's performing the total gastrectomies, and he performs other bariatric surgeries. So he was more up to speed on things. That said, even with him, he said that if he did his job right, we should not be experiencing any problem with bile reflux. And like I said, it just makes you feel uncomfortable, because he said, if I've done my job right, you shouldn't have a problem with this. And you're saying, well, I kind of do have a problem with it. It's rare, but it does happen. So anyway, the bottom line is he gave me a prescription. And he gave me a prescription for this stuff called Sulcrafate. And what I found out is the 2 medications that I found out about on the support group, Sulcrafate, or also that's the brand name, it's Sulcrafate is the medication, or the cholestyramine, they work in very different ways. So Sulcrafate works by putting a protective coating along your esophagus. So after you have an episode of bile reflux, you take one of these pills and it tamps it down. The cholestyramine works as a preventative. So you take it on a daily basis to prevent bile reflux from happening. Since it doesn't happen that often to me, but I tell you, when it happens, it's pretty awful. But since it doesn't happen that often, it doesn't make sense for me to have a medication being done on a day-by-day basis. It's better to deal with it when it does happen. So the second question is liquid or pills. Now, I was given pills. Liquid is out there. The problem is that the liquid is so much more expensive than the pills. A lot of insurances won't pay for it. So you get these pills. Cheaper, but the problem with these pills is they could choke a horse. They are gigantic. And what I did, because I was having a problem with bile reflux, is I followed the label. And what the label said, what was typed out for me, was to take 1 tablet when required as directed, and that was to swallow a pill. And I tell you, when you're swallowing these pills, it felt like it went down and just got stuck, and it was very, very uncomfortable. So I really don't want to have that happen again. I go back to the support group to find out, how do other people deal with handling pills this big? And one is, if you have a pill cutter or you have a knife, just cut it in half. I was in the middle of a bile reflux episode, So I wasn't even thinking about cutting it in half. I was like, what do the directions say? Take one. I took one. Mistake. So cutting it in half makes a lot of sense. Also, what I found is people take them and they're chewable, which I didn't know. You can chew them, take a small bit of liquid, drink it, swish it in your mouth, and that's a way to take it in. Or you can take one of these pills and dissolve it in a very little amount of liquid. So 15 mils, about a tablespoon. So you're making a slurry, and you're taking that, you're able to just take it in that slurry. So it's not dissolving it in a big cup of water, it's dissolving it in like a tablespoon of liquid so that you're not swallowing this big monster pill. The other challenge with Carafate as opposed to cholestyramine is that you're supposed to take this on an empty stomach. And if you've experienced a total gastrectomy, you know, I mean, obviously we don't have a stomach, but you're eating a lot of times, little amounts through the day. So if you had to take this 4 times a day, which is if this was your way of, if you have chronic bile reflux, you'd have to take this 4 times a day. It's hard to take it when you don't have food in your system, because we often have food in our system. So anyway, now I know a little bit more about the medical approaches to dealing with bile reflux. In those times when my pillow hasn't worked, I've slipped off my pillow, or I might not have Pepsi and Pickles available, I now have an insurance policy that I know how to take. And for me, it'll be chewing it up and taking it with a little bit of liquid to get it out of my mouth, or dissolving it in that 1 tablespoon of beverage. So hopefully having this knowledge now helps prevent you from swallowing a horse pill.